Ken, how do you feel now it's done? You're the new chairman of Bolton Wanderers, and what's the plan for moving the club forward? Answer any of those questions in any order.
Well, I think I can answer them in the right order. Very happy. I think it's a great opportunity and delighted to be here.
Okay. What's the plan? What's the structure from here on in?
The plan is to get promoted. Plan is to bring in a strong team from board level right the way down to football management level, and to run both the football club on the basis of being successful, and to run the other parts of the club, which is the hotel and the conference centre, the same way.
How big of a challenge is it?
I think if we look at if we take the hotel and the events, they've done enormously well. What they've achieved. If I go back to when I came to this club, probably the first time 10, 12 years ago, you saw a hotel that was very much a hotel base that people would come and stay in the room. There might have been business people coming in and out. Today it's very much event driven, and the occupation is driven by the events. And if you look at the average occupancy throughout the year of around 83%, that side of it is doing very well. Can still do better. We can get more events here, we'll make it better. The football side, I think we've got to accept that this season, people haven't performed to their ability. The way the games have gone has been disappointing. I'll talk to the players about that today to hear their views, and probably be able to answer that question better when I've heard their side of it. A bit like you, I'm an outsider looking in. But I think generally, they haven't performed to their ability. We've got to find out why.
You've clearly got some big decisions to make. And where do you start?
Football-wise?
Yep.
I think football-wise, the first question I ask today is which of our players actually want to be here next season, and then start deciding who we think can perform, where we are with those players, who we can afford, or whether certain players have got to leave. And I think that's pretty obvious which ones I'm talking about, and I think it's the press have done a good job on telling me that already. So.
Well, it's not difficult to work out, in fairness, is it? I mean, you're going to lose money because Bolton Wanderers are relegated and they're playing in the third tier of English football for the first time in 23 years. That's got to have a financial knock-on effect, surely, hasn't it?
Yeah, I then look at teams like Man City, who had a similar situation, who came back. If we can find a very wealthy beneficiary, we might be in the same position as them. But no, seriously, our revenues are going to go down. We've got to look at ways of replacing them in other ways.
Before you came in, it was widely reported that this club was losing towards £1 million a month. How do you arrest that situation?
I think we've already got a plan in place for that.
What's the plan?
Well, I think the plan is obviously salaries. All clubs, what makes them make or lose money is the salaries of the players, and we've got to come back and be commercial and prudent on what our salaries are, and cut our cloth accordingly. Is
that the biggest area, if I can use this word, if Bolton Wanderers as a football club or even as a business is hemorrhaging money, is that the biggest singular area which is a major cost factor?
I think it's all 92 league clubs have got that same problem.
Yeah, but the Bolton supporters aren't worried about the other 91, they're only worried about Bolton.
I think the only real way that we can change the cost structure here immediately is on players' salaries. It's what makes or breaks the P&L, if you like.
What was the appeal for you, to take over Bolton, and can you tell us anything about the way the deal was structured? Again, there's been so much reported about the finances of the club, the way the deal's been structured. Separate the fact from the fiction.
First question, as I saw the opportunity, saw it as an enormous opportunity. I saw it as a club that had good history, and we wanted to bring that back. The financials, we spent a lot of time on the financials. We went through them with fine-tooth comb, and I think we now know where we will be going with the financials, and we've got a commercially viable business plan for next season.
Well, I mean, I've been reading very recently about Aston Villa, who've announced inevitably with their relegation. I know it's a different club, but inevitably they've said with that there will be redundancies. Do you expect the staffing levels here at Bolton will be reduced?
Football you were talking about?
Well, on the field, off the field.
I think I've said earlier this morning, we expect our squad to be 23, 24 players, with 5 or 6 of the younger players coming in to support us, because towards the end of the season, when we get injuries and tiredness, etc., we can't bring it after January now. We can't bring in the emergency loan situation, so we've got to have a squad that will take us to the end of the season, and that we believe will perform and get us back up.
What about the structure off the field, the boardroom structure, directors, people who you were going to bring in? You issued a statement, I think, yesterday saying you've got to link up as well, or hopefully have a link up with other football clubs.
First question, we know who the board will be. You'll be the first to know after the staff of the club are told later this week. I think the strength of our board coming, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the existing board. I think they'd served their time, and things didn't work out in the end. But I don't think that was necessarily the board's fault. That was the performance on the pitch. I'm very confident with the strength of the board we're bringing and the experience they've got. And most of you are going to know all the people that are coming in, that we'll be in a position to run the club well.
Can I ask you directly a little bit more about how the deal was structured? Have you put money into the club? Has anybody else put money into the club? Is it done on borrowed money effectively? Because that's that's what people are suggesting.
The Football League have an undertaking from me for a certain amount of money to come in. That remains between the football club, the Football League and myself. But there is an undertaking to put that money in. They checked that I had that money and they were happy, and we got passed.
Okay. Where are you up to in terms of the managerial vacancy?
The managerial vacancy was really surprising and encouraging, insofar as we had over 50 applications. We had a number of people who applied that I wouldn't have expected to apply. High quality, good people, and as I said earlier, one of the managers actually said they'd walk to Bolton for the job. We took it down probably by the beginning of this week to final 6, and we're probably down to the final 3 people now, and we'll be doing the second interviews with those later this week.
Is Kevin Nolan one of those 3 people? I understand he's set to leave Leyton Orient.
Kevin, as far as I'm aware, hasn't applied.
Right, okay, thank you. What about the budget then, and the transfer embargo? Is there any money, and how do you go about getting this embargo
I'm confident
lifted?
the embargo will be lifted before the transfer window opens, and that we'll be able to go out and do the usual football business that all clubs do in the summer.
In terms of the sort of players you're looking to bring in, I mean, obviously you're a man with connections in the industry. How important is the loan market going to be?
I think we've already spoken to 4 clubs. We know which players we would like from those 4 clubs. Unfortunately, a lot of other clubs would like those same players, but we've got to try and hope that we can call in some favours and the clubs will support us. The general response from the clubs, which are all Premiership clubs, was that they want to give their players playing time and to develop them. And if we look back how Premiership clubs have done this in the past, if you look at the Jack Wiltshires of this world, the Lukakus, our idea is if we can try and find similar quality players that will come here, it gives us a better chance of being promoted.
Getting the club in a sustainable financial position, we've talked about restructuring on the pitch. Off it, is there going to have to be a restructure too? Won't there have to be redundancies, things like that?
As I said earlier today, I've given my word that there won't be any redundancies for at least a month while we look at exactly where we are.
Okay. Going back to the takeover, what's the situation with regards to the previous owner, Eddie Davis? The debt there, has that all been written off, or is there still money owed to him? Where do we stand?
There is some money still owed to Eddie, which he kindly agreed to defer for 2 years, and that was probably what made this deal take a little bit longer than we would have hoped, because we had to renegotiate that and ensure that it wasn't needed for this season, because at that stage we knew we were probably going to be relegated and we would need all the funds we've got, and eventually we reached an agreement whereby it was deferred for 2 years, and it's built into the cash flow for the second year that we will be able to pay it. I don't think he would have sold the club to us if he didn't think he was going to get the money.
Well, yeah. Just one last one from me then. Some fans might look back in history to your involvement with Southampton and think, oh, I'm a bit worried here. Is he the man? How would you allay those fears?
I think that the press reports on Southampton were not accurate. The situation with Southampton, I was successful in selling that club. It was probably one of the most difficult transactions I've ever done. We had Rupert Lowe didn't want to go. I think the fans believed that he probably owned around 80% of the club when it was around 8%. We had to take it all the way to an EGM, and an hour before the EGM he decided to let us complete the takeover. The people that went in there weren't subsequently successful, but it sold to another person that we also knew. We didn't do that sale, but we was aware of that person because they'd been around when we were doing that transaction, and the club's gone on to be very successful. So.
Thank you. Cheers, Ken.
As mentioned earlier, you released a statement. Do you feel that the fans needed answers, and that's why you put that statement out?
I think they needed answers. I think we had to give a direction where we wanted to take the club and what we were doing, because I think there was a lot of people, there was a lot of speculation, there was a lot of even more press speculation as to where the club was, what its financial position was, the results on the pitch, and I think it was a matter of let's go and tell the fans what I think and where we've got to try and go next season.
And as mentioned earlier, 50 managerial applications. Are you surprised by that amount, despite the relegation, despite the financial problems, that the Bolton Wanderers name still is obviously an attractive proposition?
I think I wasn't surprised by the number of people who applied, because I think every time there's a vacancy now, you read that there's 50 or 80 applications. What I was surprised at was the quality of the applicants. Not that I don't think that Bolton deserved that sort of quality, but I just thought that people were probably thinking that Bolton, was sinking, and would they want to come to that? And the various problems on the field have been well reported, and but I think when you see who we announce, and we've still got 3 people, as I said, but I think whichever one we announce, I think hopefully most people will be very happy with it.